Welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm your host, Reanna Hoffman, and this is a space for women learning to wait well and live fully. Whether you're in the middle of uncertainty, transition, or just figuring out what's next, this podcast is here to remind you you are not behind, not forgotten, and definitely not just waiting. Let's dig into truth, grow in courage, and hold on to hope together. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. Today, I am joined by Niki Kirby, a writer and an entrepreneur who loves Jesus and people deeply. Across home, business, and ministry, Niki's calling is to awaken others to their God-given identity so they can live boldly while walking closely with Jesus. Her voice carries a beautiful mix of urgency, compassion, and down-to-earth clarity, like sitting down for coffee with a trusted friend. Niki lives along Florida's 38, where she balances family life, real estate projects, and writing, and finds joy in cooking, reading, Christmas, and Disney World. This conversation is rich, encouraging, and full of reminders about who we are and who we're becoming as we wait. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I am so stinking excited to introduce you guys to Niki. Niki and I met at boot camp last year.
We did,
That's so
yeah.
sad that was so long ago.
I know.
We met at boot camp last year in sunny Charleston. We were just discussing that it is winterish where she lives and it is cold where I live. So we're hoping that you guys are warm and hopefully your warm is like 50, 60-ish, not 23-ish.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so stinking excited to introduce you guys. I've been wanting to have this conversation for a very long time, and Niki has cool things to tell you. So, Niki, before we jump into the questions, and I don't want to forget, can you tell us about your book?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited that you asked. So I have written a book. It's called The Garden of Exile, How to Flourish in a World That's Not Your Home. And y'all, this book is like my legacy book to my kids, to everybody that reads it. It is the book that when I was writing it, I just kept thinking, okay, what would I want my kids to know? What do I want X, Y, and Z friend to know? And I just poured my heart and soul into it. It's based on Jeremiah 29, 1 through 14, which, if you're unfamiliar, it is the letter that God gave the prophet Jeremiah to give to the Israelites when they were taken captive in Babylon. And it's basically the instructions for how they are to live as exiles in a foreign, hostile land. And so basically what I've done is looked at this passage and pulled out all of the parallels between being literal exiles and proverbial exiles and what that means for us today as Christians in an increasingly post-Christian world. And I love it. I'm so excited. I think it is a needed message. I think it's something that is going to wake the church up and inspire people. I hope it puts some wind in everybody's sails. It's raw. It's got a little bit of teeth, which, I'm excited about, but it also is not going to feel, I don't think it's going to feel heavy or rigid. I think it's going to be something where it's like you feel this equal mix of fired up and inspired, maybe a little convicted, but seen, if that makes sense.
I absolutely love that. Where can we put our hands on this now? Because I know pre-orders are open.
Yeah, so it's pre-sale right now. Right now, NikiKirby.com is the only place to get a pre-order. And so there's going to be two separate places where it's sold. Well, more than two, but it's going to be sold online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of that. But that book will only be paperback. So the really beautiful hardback that's going to have like metallic foil embossed, and then the companion guide. I wrote a companion guide with it. It's like linen with, like the foil metallic. It's beautiful. I'm a sucker for aesthetics. So the really beautiful ones are only sold directly through me, but eventually you will be able to get a paperback. And there are people that prefer paperback. That will be available, Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, all of that. So, but right now, NikiKirby.com.
That is so awesome. And friends, we will link that in our show notes so that you spell everything correctly. And then it'll just click it and it'll pop up on your phone or your laptop. Although I feel like most of you are probably listening on your phone, but it'll pop up in the Safari app or the Google app, depending upon what thing you do. What search engine? That's the word I was looking for, search engine.
Awesome.
So we are continuing in our Becoming series for this year. We just finished our Time, Talents, and Treasure series at the end of last year, right before we started Advent. And here on the Not Just Waiting podcast, we talk a lot about the waiting season, but we, I think, tend to forget that who we're becoming in the process is really the goal. Like that is what the Lord is trying to do in us. So I have a couple questions for you,
Yeah.
and feel free to expand as much as you want or be like, I don't know. Both are equally okay. So my first question is, who do you sense God has been forming you into in this season, especially in ways that weren't visible or celebrated?
Gosh, what a great question. I just used this phrase, it's hard to see forest through the trees. And I think that when we are in a formation season, which you could argue that we're always in a formation season, right? I
Absolutely.
think that when you're there, sometimes you're not aware that that's what's going on. I was thinking about this concept because you had mentioned to me what we were going to be talking about. And I hate to say this, but every time I think about the most formational seasons, I think about seasons of suffering. And I hate to say that because I don't like to suffer at all. I'm not a good sufferer. I would be a terrible martyr. I mean, I would I would just whine the whole time. I would not at all be like a picture of Christian martyrdom. Anyway, all of that to say, when I look back, I'm 43 or going to be 43 in a couple weeks. And when I think back on the most formational seasons, man, they are hard seasons. They were seasons a lot of times that were maybe invisible, which I think is one of the hard parts about some of those seasons is it's not always things that people will sign up and bring a meal train for. A lot of times you're sort of suffering in silence for one reason or another, but they're just brutal. And so when I think about who God is forming me into right now, there are a couple things that come into mind. Number one is somebody that is not as afraid to be uncomfortable because I really, really, really like to be comfortable. And I wrote a whole chapter about this where it's basically comfort is not king, Jesus is king. And I wrote that from a place of like really having to wrestle that out because I'm like, I think that there is this kind of pervasive lie in the Western church that says that we're like supposed to be comfortable, right? Like it's
Mhm.
kind of prosperity gospel
Yeah.
ish. And so I think number one is I am learning how to be more uncomfortable. And then the second thing, which is almost kind of ironic in light of what my book is about, which is finding a way to be at home in a world that's not your home, is a person that has roots. So, my husband is a real estate developer and a serial entrepreneur, and we are literally next week moving for the seventh time in 10 years. And then that's not even counting the moves before that. So, we move a lot. We are in a lot of perpetual motion. And I'm somebody that really, again, I like to be comfortable. I like to have my home and my nest and all of this. And so it's interesting that the thing that stirred in my heart around the Jeremiah passage was about a people group that were not at home and how they can basically build a home in a place that's not their home. And I feel that so deeply because we move a lot and I love home and I love to feel, all nesty and cozy and so as we get ready to move houses, literally next week,
Mm.
I think about how much more rooted I feel in spite of all of the twists and turns. So I think somebody that's learning to not be opposed to being uncomfortable and somebody that is, I can see that the root system has gotten stronger.
Whoa, those are like really good and really deep. And I think a lot of us can feel that in like different levels. We haven't moved as much as you have, but I know there's a lot of like struggle with moving and
Mhm.
change. And
For sure.
so I think moving for me is one of those things that triggers that change
Hmm.
reaction in my head so quickly. And
Hmm.
then there are times like you were talking about with exiles, like they just want to go home. And
Yeah.
sometimes that home just moves with us. And
Hmm.
so in that becoming season, we're learning that home doesn't necessarily look like a place, but it
Right.
might be the people, it might be our
Yes.
community and what the Lord's calling us to. So I love that you highlighted some of that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I love
Thank
it.
you. Thanks.
Was there a season where God seemed more focused on shaping your character than advancing your calling? And
Ooh,
what did that form in you?
whew. Okay. So going back to the seasons of suffering, there is one season in particular that when I think about it, I still have a visceral response to it. My chest tense up. I could almost cry thinking about it. It was a parenting season that was just brutal. And at the time, I felt like I could not come up from air for air. It just felt like it was just wave after wave, and it lasted a long time. And
Mhm.
it was one of those things where it was scary. And at the time, the very last thing that was on my mind was any sort of formation. I just was desperate for relief. And I remember sitting in the car of a parking lot, waiting on a kid to get out of tutoring one day. And I was just broken before God. And I was praying, and I just was like, God, just give me a breakthrough. Give me a breakthrough. And then immediately afterwards, I was like, I feel so broken right now. I feel so broken. And something in my head, probably the Holy Spirit, just clicked with me where I was thinking about the word breakthrough. Because one of the things that my mama says to me is, the only way out is through, the only way out is through, the only way out is through. And in that moment, I was like, man, what if this is what breakthrough looks like,
Mm.
right? Like, what if it is being broken and just moving forward and just going through it, like going through it. And I had this picture in my head of like a pond that had frozen over and chipping away at the ice, like little by little. So I think we think of breakthrough as this big, grand, and sometimes it is, right? Like sometimes we hear these really amazing stories of deliverance and all of this. But I think more often than not in my life, it's looked more like just that like chisel of the ice little by little. And in those moments, I 100% did not feel like God was doing anything formational in me. It felt like in a lot of ways, I hate to say this, but sometimes it would feel like God was cool or not there.
Mhm.
Um, but in looking back, I have this tenderness in my heart, thinking through those seasons and then seeing where he really was there and where he was
Mhm.
forming it. So I would say, I think when it comes to formational seasons, you may not feel it at the time. It may be like in hindsight that you look back and you're like, okay, I see where this was going. I see how this formed me. I see how this is shaping me. And for me, one of the things that I've always felt is I do feel closer to God sometimes when I'm just desperate, when you're stripped
Mhm.
away from everything and you're like, I have nothing left but to seek you out, God. It's this like surrendered desperation that's beautiful. And I think that's where the formation really happens, but you don't always feel it in the moment.
That was good. Like, I watched all that happen in my head. I was like,
Yeah.
"That's
The
good."
ups. Yeah.
Can that be your next book, please?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, when you were talking about breakthrough, you literally have to go through it. Is there a time that you look back and, like, realize what the Lord has done? Or is it just like you're sitting on your couch one day and you're like, "Oh, we're through it. We have made it." Is there a difference?
I think it's both. I think you can have both. I think there have been, I I feel almost like a spiritual sense sometimes when the seasons have shifted. And so there have been moments when I'm like, the tide's changed, like, okay, something has happened. Something has shifted. The spiritual atmosphere in our home has changed, and it's palpable. It's like, I just feel it. And then there are other times when I'm like, okay, it's been 3 months and we haven't had that set. Like, it's much more subtle. So I don't know. I think I would caution anybody to seek out always that, like, flashing neon light, like it's over, because that, for me, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's more just like, okay, like we're getting our feet back under us.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Um, I have another question.
Yeah.
What have you had to release, whether that's expectations, timelines, your identity, in order to become who God is inviting you to be now?
Can I say all of the above?
Yes.
So all of the above. I think the first thing that pops into my mind is my plans, and so control. I like, have you ever done that strengths finder test where it
Yes.
tells you, okay, so I just geek out on that kind of stuff. I love it. One of my top strengths is ideation. So I'm like an idea girl. I'm like, give me, a think tank and I'll come up with ideas and plans and all of this. Not necessarily the best executor for all those ideas, but I do come up with a lot of ideas. And I have had to learn to release control because we are ultimately, right? Like many are the demands of a plan's heart, but the Lord directs his steps. And that has had to be something that I just continually have to learn over and over again. And it's interesting, we're talking about moving. So we are moving, but our contract for our house is such that it was contingent on the people buying our house selling theirs. And so I have had to just like kind of hold my breath until we are like hard in the contract. And I was praying about it. And I just was like, okay, I need to quit praying about anything else and just pray that God will remind me that he is good no matter what, that he is good no matter what. And I think that's where I have a hard time because sometimes I think my plans are the good thing. And, we're so short-sighted. And even if I learn this lesson 8 million times, it's still, man, it's like a deep rut in my neural pathways that I have to work on. So I would say that. I mean, again, comfort. I don't like to be uncomfortable. And I mean, I really want things to be like nice and happy and easy. And I mean, I feel like I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves, but I also would like it to be easy. Thank you very much. So that. And I mean, if you want to get really on the micro level when it comes to writing a book, timelines and expectations have been a big one because there's constantly delays. It reminds me a lot of the construction industry, which is our other business, because you literally have very little control over all of the different dynamics and all of the different pieces when it comes to any sort of a creative project. So yeah, I think control is kind of the theme here. So that is the thing I probably need to pray over the most.
Do you have any practical tips for either identifying those, or is it one of those things that you have to come back to every day?
Um, I wish I could say that I was disciplined enough to remember to come back to it every day, but I'm not. So a lot of times it's like, you know how like when you go bowling, they have the lanes and you can get the bumper things in the lanes. I'm one of those people that like I'm the ball that's like so I have to, I have to like hit it to steer it in my head. But I think I work with a girl that does root cause medicine. And she's really big on looking at your symptoms and not just looking at like the symptoms or in our case, the felt need, but really going to like, what is the root? So I would say the practical tip here would be to sit whenever you feel something like, I am resistant to this, or this, to maybe sit with God and ask him to reveal, like, what's the root of this? Where's this coming from? Because it's very difficult to kill a weed if you're not pulling it up by the roots. You mow the yard all day long. And so I think identifying that, okay, we're going to start with this. Like, I don't want my plan to be interrupted. Well, why don't I want my plan to be interrupted? I don't want my plan to be interrupted because I think my plans are the best plans and I don't fully trust that God is good and I'm not willing to fully sacrifice my life for his plan. So it's like you kind of peel back the layers and it's uncomfortable. But once you do that, it kind of shines light on it and I think it can help. But please hear me when I say I'm not doing this every day. A lot of times I'm just like knocking my head against the wall and God's like, oh, remember that wall was there. So
That's so true because it happens in my life too. I'm like, I'm going to do this thing better. And I am one of those about plans. I don't like when plans change. Like, I
no, it's
legitimately
the
ask my husband.
worst.
It's the worst. Every
So
day when my
bad.
husband gets home, I'm like, okay, we're having dinner. And then what's the plan? And he's like, what do you want the plan to be? I'm like, my plan was contingent upon your plan. Now I have a subconscious plan of how I would like tonight to go, but I don't want to be like a dictator over how our life goes tonight. So it's so funny to me that when you said plan, I was like, ding, 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 ding. I feel that because, the whole change thing, when my plans change, it does not do nice things in my body.
No,
It
I
makes
know.
me very anxious.
Really not fun at all. It's not fun. I have 2 kids and my daughter is very similar. So it's been interesting to see a mirror kind of held up to that, to see it through, see it from the outside looking in and to have to coach another human on like the thing that I need to work on. So I would say that's the other practical tip is just birth a a child that's your, mirror image of all of the things that you struggle with. And then you'll have to learn to coach it. So you're like, all right, one of us has to figure this out.
I think that's the best form of sanctification sometimes.
100%. 100%. Yep.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay, before I go on another tangent, one of the things we talk about here at Not Just Waiting is we do active waiting instead of passive waiting. So we know that passive waiting looks like, at least for me, sitting on my couch and watching movies and eating peanut butter cookies.
Mhm.
It has its place, but
Uh,
I shouldn't be doing that all day every day because I would turn into a peanut butter cookie.
yeah.
Um I would have all of the features of a peanut butter cookie. And so we know that active waiting means that we get to be doing something while we're waiting for the Lord. And we know that everybody is waiting on something, whether they're 5 and waiting on a lollipop, or they're 25 and waiting for their career, or they're 85 and they're just waiting on Jesus. Like, we all know that everybody's waiting on something. So, how are you waiting well in this season?
So I love that you asked in this season because my parents are former college ministry people. So they were in lay ministry my entire life. And they have some great kind of lessons that they would teach over the years. And one of them was based on this old book. And I have tried to find this book and I cannot find it. It's Life Lessons from Whitewater Rafting.
Okay.
And in this book, it talks about how there's all these little like one liners. And it's things like when you're in the rapids, you paddle like hell and then you rest at the calm spots. So I think one of the biggest things for how to wait well is to learn to like kind of read the room, like read your season, know what your season is. So to your point about peanut butter cookies, I actually do think that there's a beautiful gift of things like taking a day to rest and veg out and do that. But I also think that when you're in the rapids, you got to paddle like hell. And so when you're waiting, kind of understanding the whatever the season is, and it might change day by day. Sometimes it's month by month, year by year, what have you, but kind of recognizing, okay, I'm in this place right now. So for, a young professional, it might look a certain way. For a new parent, it might look a different way. For an empty nester, it might look a different way. For what have you, and just recognizing that this is where I'm at right now. This is my season. God, how do you want me to steward this particular season well? So I think sometimes it's really obvious, right? Like when we have a project or something, like I'm launching a book, I know that I'm supposed to do XYZ. In other seasons, when it feels like you're just kind of like the season's full of ordinary days, you know how like the church calendar has like the liturgical
Yeah.
calendar has like Advent and this and that, but then there's like the ordinary days. I think sometimes when we're in the ordinary days, it feels like we're not doing anything because we don't look at seasons of rest or seasons of ordinary days of, folding laundry and doing this as producing anything in us. But I think that our obedience in those seasons and just stewarding what we have is like the precursor for God pulling us out of those seasons. I mean, the whole unto whom much is given, much is required, unto whom much more is given, much more is required. So it's like whatever's in your hands in that moment, steward it well. Even if it's a very light season, if it's a light season, rest at the calm spots, just rest there.
Mm, that was good. I needed that today. If nobody else needed that, that was
Yep.
just for me. And I love how you're like, in the ordinary days. And a lot of times, like, even looking at the church calendar fascinates me because
Mhm.
I didn't know it was a thing until about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, we hurry up and then we wait. And then we hurry up and then we wait. And then we have like 6 months of nothingness. Really, it's probably like 8 months of nothingness.
Mhm.
And then it's like, okay, thing, 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 thing. And then it's just you wait. And so in those ordinary days, my brain's like, okay, but what does the Lord want us to do in these ordinary days? Like
Mhm.
Advent, we're waiting for the Messiah. And then we have Christmas tide. We get to enjoy that the Messiah is here. And then we have Three Kings Day, and it's like Epiphany, yes. And
Mhm.
then for those people in the South, that's Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
You get to eat king cake until Lent. And then you have the 40 days leading up to Easter. And then you have Easter week. And then you have Easter tide until you have Pentecost. I was
Yeah.
like, the Holy Spirit comes. What
Yeah.
is the day? Then
It's
you have
full of
Pentecost.
fire.
And then
Yes.
you got nothing until
Yeah.
Advent again. And so I love that how you said we needed to steward the ordinary days because sometimes those days are just doing laundry, but then that also opens you up when somebody texts and say, "Hey, can you?" or hey, do you wanna? Or your kids like lose their mind. And then you don't have to worry about, oh, I had 7 things planned for today that I have to now cancel
Yeah.
because my child decided to lose their mind today. But you get to be faithful in those ordinary days. So I love that. I'm going to go back and listen to that at least 4 more times before this even comes out.
Good.
So ask me about it, people, if you see me in person. Um, Nikki, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners today?
Gosh, I mean, we've had a really good conversation. I so appreciate you bringing me on. I mean, I would just say to encourage everybody that's listening, if you feel like you're waiting, because to your point, all of us are waiting for something. I think that we just have to just trust in the process a little bit. And when we don't feel like we can, just keep moving through, just keep moving forward. The only way out is through. But I really do look back on, and I mean, God willing, have another 40 years. Although I really hope Jesus comes back sooner than that. But that's neither here nor there. But assuming that we have a long life ahead of us, I'm sure I will have much more to say in 10, 20, 30 years. But now, when I look back at the past 43 years of my life, truly the seasons that feel pressing, that feel hard, that feel long, sometimes boring, what have you, the seasons where it just feels like I cannot get out of this, they really do produce fruits, and they produce fruit, and they produce the things that it's like, it's not necessarily fun. It's not the way I would pick to produce fruit, Jesus, but we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about that when we get to heaven. But
Mm-hmm.
in the interim, he's so sweet and so good to really just to work on our hearts there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us. I cannot wait to get my hands on your book. Now my brain's like, do I want the pretty one?
You want the
Because I'm
pretty one.
typically partial to paperback, but I'm like,
Oh, no.
I want the pretty one. I think I
I
want the
mean,
pretty
you
one.
you get whichever one you want. You can get the ebook if you want to, but I will say the pretty one is just like it's really pretty.
Uh-huh. I
Oh,
think
it's
I'm gonna
shiny.
have to jump on the pretty one.
I know.
Well, friends, if you want to get your hands on the pretty one, I will leave a link in the show notes, which is under this video podcast. If you guys are wondering where the show notes are, there's 3 dots and it says show notes, and you click it. And then there's a bunch of stuff down there that I write every week that like 2 people see, which is fine. But you're gonna need to click that to get to Nikki's stuff. You're gonna want to click it and then go pre-order her book that comes out very, very soon. So exciting. Also, I'm going to link your social media because your social media and your content are so fun. I love it.
Thank you. I'm like, don't know what to do with myself on social media. It's funny, when we were at book camp and they kept telling us about all the social media, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I do have fun with it. So
You're amazing. Friends, it's been fun. I hope you have had as much fun as we have and have learned a little bit.
yes.
But until next time, we will see you guys next week. Bye, friends.
Bye.
Hey friend, I want to share something that I created for those of you who are in a waiting season right now. If you're waiting on clarity, direction, healing, or a next step, and you're tired of feeling like this season is just something to get through, I made a companion resource called the Guide to Becoming. It's a scripture-based reflection guide designed to help you stay rooted, honest, and present while you wait. Not to rush forward, but to help you notice who God is forming you to be right here. You can download the Guide to Becoming right now. Just check the link in our show notes. Remember, you're not behind. You're not forgotten. You are becoming. Thanks for listening to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I hope today reminded you that even in the in-between, God is working, and you are not alone. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend? And don't forget to hit follow so you never miss a moment of truth, hope, and real conversation. You can find me on Instagram at reanna.ivy.hoff and join the community over on Substack for deeper reflections and weekly encouragement. Until next time, take heart, friend. God is in the waiting with you.